Hi, welcome to episode number 3, and we are going to be talking about what to do when your technology stops working.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your skills to the next level? Maybe start an online division of your business? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Technology Road Mapping, connecting the pieces of online and automation technologies for your business success. With your host, the business technology implementer, tech to entrepreneur translator, online sales, and marketing strategist herself, Jennifer Neal.
Okay, welcome to Technology Road Mapping, episode number 3. We're talking about what to do when your shit stops working. It's technology. I guarantee it's going to happen. It's just the nature of the beast. So, having a plan in action, knowing what to do so that when those things happen, you know kind of in your mind, these are the steps that I need to take. That is going to keep you from going completely off the rails. So that's what we're going to be covering. And let's start right now with the very, very first step. And I know this is way easier said than done, but the first step is don't panic. Because when you panic, you end up making knee-jerk reaction decisions that may not be the right things or the best decision for the moment. And so it's really important just to say, okay, this is only marketing. It's not the end of the world. This is only whatever is happening. It's really not the end of the world. A long time ago, well, I don't even know how many years now, but one of my last jobs working for someone else was I worked for a pet insurance company, believe it or not. And at that company, we went through the practice of coming up with an emergency plan. So what happened if the building burned down and the company stopped working? So my department, I was in charge of the marketing department. And so it was my job to come up with, okay, here's what's going to happen. Here's how far up the rung my important steps are. And and it was really interesting. And going back now, I probably would make a few changes, and we'll talk about that towards the end of this episode. But really, at the time, it was really interesting because, I looked around and I was like, okay, 1, we need to make sure that our people are safe. 2, we need to make sure that our data is safe and all of our customers are still taken care of. And really, by the time you went through what steps need to happen to get the business back on the rails, the marketing part was pretty far down that ladder. So it's kind of funny when you actually say, okay, if something were to completely happen catastrophically, where does that part of your business fall into play? Now, don't get me wrong, it's super important, and it's important to share those things, as we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's also more important, that honestly, the customers, taking care of your customers is one of the most important things that you need to focus on. And so that's really, it's your business, yes, and you need to control and protect your assets and your data, and obviously your money. But, sometimes if things are broken and they're just broken on one side, it may not be something that your customers will even notice. So that's really what we're going to talk about is first step, don't panic so that you can make the right decisions. Okay, second step is really you want to take a step and assess what is the real damage? What is really happening? What's really going on right now? Because that's going to help you get a more clear picture of what your next steps need to be. So, for instance, if it's something like your entire website went down, okay, that's pretty bad. Maybe the server crashed. Maybe it's something out of your control, it'll be back up in a half an hour. Maybe it's a new plugin or a new code or something that your developer put on your website. Okay, so how bad is that really? I know it's bad. It's always bad for sure. But how bad is it really? Are you in the middle of a launch where you're driving a ton of traffic to your website? Possibly. Are you just on kind of normal, everyday, organic traffic coming through? Then it probably doesn't have to be fixed in a matter of minutes or hours. It maybe can be something that can be fixed in a day. So you really just want to look at what is really happening. If your sales cart page goes down, or you can no longer transact money and you're right in the middle of a launch, you have like 20 affiliates sending you traffic and doing all these things, that's bad. That needs to get fixed ASAP. So you just really want to look at what is the real cost. And so even in terms of costs, like I know I keep driving things back to the bottom line, but really what if you can't accept money, how much money are you going to be missing out? If you're averaging in the middle of a launch right now and you're averaging 50 sales an hour and each sale is a $500 average, that's quite a bit of money that you're going to be losing. So you know in your head, all right, if I have to spend X amount to get this fixed, it's not going to be the end of the world because you're still going to make money at the end of the day. And if you don't get it fixed, here's how much you're going to be losing, right? And I'm walking through these steps really slowly. And the truth of the matter is that when you get in the thick of it and the shit stops working and everything hits the fan, you're panicked. And so these steps you're going to go through in your mind super quickly, right? But as long as you kind of know these are the steps I'm going through, then you'll be able to get through them and still make the right decisions. So, one thing to think about is really, how is this affecting your customer's experience? So if it's something like your opt-in link broke and people can't get your download, that's an opt-in for some sales event that you're doing. Okay, is that the end of the world? Yeah, the people need to get into your system and yeah, they need to be able to get your freebie, but could you substitute something else or take a little bit, like substitute something else that would still collect their information and then follow back up with them in a couple of days? You totally could do that. You just want to pay attention to like what are your customers saying? Because if it's something like an opt-in link and you switched it out, they're never going to know the difference, right? You just want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. So there's actually a study, and I'll post this on the blog, but there's a study that Samsung did, which I found really interesting because Samsung themselves did this study about like what's more important, the technology or the customer experience. And they found that the customer experience really is the most important thing. And that to me says a lot, even given Samsung's recent, the Galaxy Note 7, I think, that got banned from all airplanes, and you get a fine now if you get it, and they had to do this huge recall. And granted, they're a giant company, but rather than focusing on like, this phone doesn't work and it's like causing bombs that are gonna blow planes up, they focused on what's the best experience that we can provide back for our customers. So they're eating all of that cost and saying, we're gonna give you whatever other phone that you want. And then they published other articles and information about getting your phone changed back in and like all this support. They spent more money trying to just support their customers through that than just worrying about like, oh, it's not, it's broken, it's not working. So they were really, really focused on the customer experience. And that's what you need to be also, because it can seem like everything's blowing up and the end of the world, but really, how is it affecting your customers? So that's what we really want to look at and really try to calculate those costs. So if it's just a matter of organic traffic coming to your site that's not working, or your opt-in there isn't working and you get 10 opt-ins a month off of that, probably not a big deal, right? So you just want to look at how is that bottom line, and that'll help you also to decide in your next step is who's your team. And this is something that you kind of need to work through first, but knowing who your team is and kind of having an idea on costs, because if you have to do something in an emergency situation, you're going to pay rush charges probably if you're not the one fixing it. So really, how much do you need to spend? Was it really worth to you? And can it wait, or can it be substituted with something else, like a Band-Aid situation? And so you're going to look at kind of all those things. What are the real true costs? What's really happening? And then you're going to move to the next step. Okay, so the next step is creating a plan. And so you want to look at kind of all of the factors that you've already looked at. What's the real damage? How is this affecting my customers? And then take a look at who's your team and what are the, like, how quickly do you need to act? And so then you're going to put together sort of a plan A, B, and C. And you don't have to do this in a silo. Hopefully, if you have people on your team that are in charge of some of the technology, hop on the phone, talk with them, or call a friend that's using similar information and say, here's what's going on. And really, you want to come up with, what is best case scenario? Obviously, best case scenario is everything you already have in place just starts working again. That's always going to be the best. But what's it going to take to get there? Maybe you have to bring in outside help. Maybe you have to hire another extra expert. Maybe you have to wait for the support of the company who owns that software or tool that you're using. So you really want to look at, okay, if that step, so best case scenario A doesn't work, what is step B? Okay, second best case scenario. Maybe if it's a matter that like your shopping cart page went down, could you redirect people from that page to something else and set up like a Stripe account in a matter of a couple of minutes or something and collect money through that, just as like a Band-Aid situation, right? So steps B and C are probably going to be Band-Aid situations, especially if you're kind of right in the thick of things and you have to get things fixed quickly, right? So you want to make sure that you have sort of these backup plans, because then in your mind, when plan A doesn't work and it's like, okay, plan A is I'm going to get on support and I'm going to see if I can get this page to start working. And if I don't get that done within an hour, that's my time, then I'm going to move on to plan B, where I'm going to set up a redirect, or if your opt-in tool is not working or something, you could plug in, instead of whatever system you're using, like Infusionsoft or Ontraport or something like that, something broke with it, then you could say plug in a MailChimp form or something, collect their information from a different tool, use something different. If you are, I'm thinking of all the things that have happened when we've worked with customers. A good one, I know we've talked a lot about webinars, and if you're in the middle of, well, a lot of times what happens is you hop on to start a webinar and then nobody can log on. So, all right, do you have a backup plan in place? Sometimes you have to restart the webinar, you have to try to let people know. If there's any way to communicate with them, maybe you switch from one webinar service to another and say, okay, instead, here's our link. If some people just aren't working, then you could even say, okay, plan B or C is, all right, well, we're not going to be able to hold this live today, but I will redo it here. And in the meantime, once my stuff starts working, I will record it and send you the recording. Obviously not the best case scenario, but you can still look at getting through each of those pieces and have a plan for how it's going to affect your customers. So look at your team, have an idea who your team, like who is your tier A support. And if tier A support can't cut it, who are you going to go to for tier B? You're probably in some Facebook groups. A lot of times you can go in there and post and be like, help, this is happening. Chances are it's probably happened to someone else before in the past. They may have some ideas, suggestions for you. That's kind of where you're looking at putting together, what are my plans? How, and knowing a succession of, if this doesn't work, I'm going to try this. And sometimes you even may want to say, okay, we're going to try plans A and B at the same time. If neither of those works, then we're going to move on to C. If either one does, then that's the one we're going with. that may be what you need to do. But, and again, these decisions can come down to a matter of like less than a minute in your mind you're thinking through. Or it could be a matter of a couple of minutes, you're hopping in your Facebook group, you're giving your friend a call, you're calling, text him, just as long as you kind of don't hit that panic button and say, all right, what do I need to do? What do I really need to do here to keep my customers, their experience as best as possible while not losing the integrity of what it is that you're trying to do? And if you have to reach out and hire an external expert, somebody who may not already be on your team, it's easy in the middle of a emergency when shit's broke. You're like, I don't care. Here's all my information. Here's all my passwords. Sometimes that works great, but this is when it comes back to like knowing what those costs are. So know this is how much it's worth to me, and be able to talk to that person. A, are you familiar with the tools, software, whatever it is that you're using that's not working? B, have you seen this kind of situation before? And try to get an idea of cost. Now, nobody's going to be able to give you, oh, this is exactly how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take, because it's troubleshooting, right? So that's a difficult thing to do. But, you know, if you know, like, okay, I'm in the realm of a couple $100 versus a couple $1,000, that's going to help you kind of make that decision, like this is how important it is. And find out also if there's rush charges and what those rush charges are. So then that'll help you also decide, okay, do I really need this person? Yes, I do. Move forward. And then, just as an emergency, most of the time when you're reaching out to that like third tier expert of somebody that you have to find to help you get stuff fixed ASAP, those people usually come from some sort of a referral or somebody that you know that's used them and that kind of thing. So it's generally going to be safe. But just to continue to protect your customers and your data and the integrity of your business, is after all things are said and done, my suggestion is go back and reset all of your passwords so that the next time this happens, you have to hand your passwords back out to people again. They don't just continue to have that access, because that can just open up kind of a whole other can of worms, and you probably don't want to go there, especially because then you can just be hopping from like emergency to emergency, and then you feel like technology super sucks and you hate it in your business, and you know, we don't want to go down that road. That road sucks. So just keep all of these things in mind when you're looking at your plan, you're looking at your teams. Put together at least 3 scenarios. Here's my plan A, plan B, plan C. And then you're going to implement. Implementing. I know that's like, it's already at step number 4 here. And it seems like that should be earlier on, but you don't want to try to take that step forward until you have that plan. So once you are implementing, here is my other suggestion, is you're kind of going to triage everything that's happening, because chances are there's going to be some sort of a different solution, different tool, Band-Aid, something that you're doing that's outside the norm of your normal process. Now, in the heat of the moment, it may be like, oh yeah, that's fine, just do that, just do that, just do that. Okay. And you do have to do those things to get through this situation. But my advice is kind of twofold here. One, you want to make sure that you're triaging in the right way. So you're still focusing on what's the most important thing, what's that customer experience, and are you protecting the data and the integrity of your business? And then as you are putting together these new systems, you may sign up for a new account. You may, whatever the case may be. So let's say you have to sign up for a new account. You end up forwarding your original page to a different page, and you're plugging in the information from that new account, and then that's routing to a different system. So then you have to take all of those people and manually send out an email or send out some sort of a communication to them. That's totally fine, because from the customer experience, they're still seeing what you want them to see. They're still getting the information you want them to get. Again, it may not be exactly in the steps that you wanted, but they're still getting it, right? That's the most important. I don't care if you do voice memos, if you do a sheet of paper or a notebook or something that you're doing, but trust me on this, try as hard as you can to keep all of the information for what you do, what steps you are taking outside of that norm. Because in another couple of days, when things have calmed down and you go back to your situation, and so another couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever it is, and the original tech problem that was all messed up is now fixed. So you are back in line with the way things are supposed to work. At that point, you look back and you're like, okay, did I take care of everybody I was supposed to? Did I get all the information out? How do I get all these people back in my system? How do I reset my original page and take that redirect off? If you don't have a place where you've recorded all these steps and all these changes that you did, you have to go back through that whole process, which is not only incredibly mind-numbing and painful, but it reminds you of the whole fuck up that happened to begin with. And it just causes like all this tension and anxiety. So it's like you're living the whole thing twice. So make every attempt possible to keep track of those things that you're changing. Because then when you go back, it's a lot easier to retrace and say, okay, I just need to take this off and take this off. And it's that plan again. When your mind has a plan and you're following that, it's so much easier to not panic. And then, just make sure that whatever, maybe it's a permanent change, maybe it's a permanent switch that you did, maybe whatever it was that broke the first time has just been fixed, and that's great. So how do you make sure that it doesn't get broken again, right? You kind of want to make sure that you have backup steps in place so that you don't get back into that situation. But try to record everything that's happening, because it will make unsticking this whole thing so much easier for you. I promise. I promise. All right. And now to our final step. And this is a step that the marketer in me just can't let go. Because here's the thing. Every single one of us uses technology in some way, shape, or form. And at some point in our lives, every single one of us has experienced that shit stopping to work, right? It just breaks or blows up or whatever at some point in time. And while we talked about the customer experience being the most important thing, really part of that customer experience is how they're perceiving you. Because again, people only want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So honestly, taking what you've learned, this entire experience, and being completely transparent about it after the fact, and maybe even partially during, is you just want to just tell them, look, I did this and this blew up. So while you all may not have seen exactly what happened, here's what did happen. And share, and you don't have to give all the details, but share your feelings, share what happened, share your plan. And people will completely find that endearing. They will actually be more drawn to you for the things that you screw up and you tell them about later than if everything just worked right and perfect all the time. I mean, it's, in fact, I just this morning, I just got an email from Plus This, which is plugin software for Infusionsoft and quite a few other softwares. But they're a great company, and they sent out an email and they're like, oops, we previously sent out an email and it had the wrong subject line. And really, here's what happened is, like, our software went down for a while, and here's what happened, and here's how we found out, and here's how we're fixing it. It's a great story. So now, not only is Plus This just this cool company, but I also feel like, oh, they're human too. They just had something break just like me. So then you feel more comfortable with that company, right? So take advantage of these things that break and don't work, because they really, really help in terms of building that relationship with your customers and setting up that trust and really just being completely transparent, being real about what happens. That makes you so much more endearing. It will work every time. So that is also, when something first blows up, just keep in mind, like, that's not the end of the world. And at the end of it, I'm going to have a story that I can share. I have something else that I'm going to be able to share with everybody. And you know that you're going to have a plan to get through it. So that is all the steps you are going to. Number 1, not panic. Number 2, assess the real damage. Number 3, develop a plan A, B, and C. And number 4, share it. Okay? It's just that simple. I know with technology, I don't care what it is, it will break. It's guaranteed to happen in your business. So have these plans in mind, know the steps that you're going to take, and the next time something happens, you will not get caught with your pants down. I guarantee it. So until the next time, you keep on teching, and we will see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to Technology Road Mapping with your host, Jennifer Neal. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit formuladone.com, formuladone.com/roadmap, and on Twitter and Facebook @FormulaDone. We'll catch you next time.